Why did a pilot drop his coffee mug, shattering the silence of an entire hangar, just because he caught sight of the skin on a technician's back? For 18 months, Christina Bailey had been nobody. She hauled ammunition belts across the tarmac in the scorching Arizona heat. She answered curtly to supervisors who barely remembered her name. She lived as a shadow inside Fort Sandstone, the kind of soldier who blended into the background until even her name tape looked faded, like the letters themselves wanted to disappear. And yet, in that one moment reaching overhead, her shirt pulling just enough to reveal the hard edge of a tattoo she had sworn would never be seen again, everything unraveled. Captain Cooper froze. His sharp intake of breath cut through the desert air like a blade, because he knew. He knew exactly what that geometric tattoo meant. And suddenly, the quiet woman who loaded Apache rounds became the most dangerous person on the entire base. Christina's life had been a study in invisibility. At 5:30 hours, long before most personnel stumbled into the hangar, she was already there. Moving like a ghost between the hulking machines, the Ah-64 Apache lined in perfect rows, their frames casting geometric shadows across polished concrete. Each round she lifted was handled as though it were glass, never rushed, never sloppy. "Billy, you're early again," Staff Sergeant Nash called out, clipboard in hand. He had that gruff, half-irritated tone he always used, the one that said he didn't know what to do with someone who refused to break rules by showing up late. "Couldn't sleep, Sergeant," Christina murmured back, just loud enough to be heard, just soft enough to be dismissed. That was her secret. She had perfected a tone of voice so ordinary that it never lingered in anyone's memory. Just another background sound in a hangar filled with tools, banter, and orders. But sleep wasn't her problem. She didn't need it the way others did. Special operations training had taught her how to survive on 4 hours of rest, to function in extremes, to push past limits. Not that anyone here knew. To them, she was just another technician with a wrench in her hand and grease under her nails. Private Boyd stumbled in next, young and still clumsy with his boots. 19 years old, fresh out of training, face still carrying the optimism that the military hadn't yet stripped away. He looked at her the way younger soldiers always had, with a mixture of awe and confusion, as if she carried answers he didn't even know he was searching for. "How do you make this look easy?" he asked, fumbling with the belt of 30 rounds. Christina adjusted his grip with quiet patience. "Respect the ammunition, Boyd. These rounds don't care if you're tired or distracted. One mistake, someone dies." He nodded, serious now, and she saw in him what she used to be, eager, determined, completely unprepared. Against her better judgment, she'd grown protective of him, maybe too protective. The hangar filled slowly as the morning came alive with chatter, the easy banter of people who lived with risk and made jokes to keep it at bay. Christina stayed quiet, part of the furniture, answering only when spoken to. It wasn't just discipline, it was survival. But then Captain Cooper arrived, and Cooper was different, careful, methodical, the kind of pilot who checked everything twice, not because he doubted his team, but because he knew trust wasn't insurance against death. "How's she looking today, Bailey?" he asked, running his hands along the Apache's frame. His sunglasses hid his eyes, but his voice carried the calm confidence of someone who had survived more than one battlefield. "All systems green, sir," she replied, logbook in hand. Routine, it should have been routine, until it was. As she stretched to secure an inspection panel, the hem of her fatigue shirt lifted. Just a fraction of a second, just enough. The crash of ceramic on concrete echoed, louder than rotor blades. Christina froze. The pilot's coffee mug lay shattered at his feet, and Cooper, the careful, composed officer, stared at her like he'd seen a ghost. His whisper barely carried across the hangar, "Son of a bitch." He wasn't looking at her face. He was staring at the ink just above her belt line. That tattoo. To most people, meaningless shapes, but to the few who'd been there, It was a mark burned into memory, a symbol of operations so classified they were erased from reports before they were even filed. She lowered her arms, pulled her shirt back down, and for the first time in 18 months she looked someone directly in the eyes without flinching. A silent warning, a plea, a command, keep your mouth shut. Cooper bent quickly, gathering the broken pieces of his mug, his movement disguising his voice. We need to talk, after my flight, somewhere private. Her pulse didn't quicken, her breathing didn't change. Outwardly she remained calm, even as every calculation in her mind shifted gears. Understood, sir. Maintenance office. 1400. The mask slid back over his features. He stood, nodded, carried on with his inspection as if nothing had happened. But she saw the truth in his eyes. Recognition. And recognition was the most dangerous thing that could happen to someone who wasn't supposed to exist. For 18 months, Christina Bailey had lived as a ghost. And now, the past had reached through her carefully built cover and touched her with a single wordless revelation. She went back to her work, hand steady, voice even, but her thoughts moved fast, calculating risks, imagining outcomes. By the time Cooper's Apache lifted off, rotors thundering into the desert sky, Christina already knew her cover was broken. And once broken, there was no way back. The question wasn't if she would be exposed, it was how long she had left. Minutes later, another problem appeared. Lieutenant Commander Stone, intelligence officer, sharp suit, sharper eyes. A man who carried himself like information was power, and he owned more of it than anyone else. He approached her with a tone that felt rehearsed, too rehearsed. Bailey, I need to speak with you about requisitions. She wiped her hands on a rag, masking her unease. In 18 months, Stone had never spoken to her directly, never cared about ammunition forms. The timing was too perfect, too dangerous. Yes, sir, she said, following him into the shadows of the hangar. Stone handed her a tablet. Several requisitions signed under your name don't match standard load configurations. Christina scanned the data. She recognized her own handwriting. Adjustments she had made, subtle ones, designed to fit terrain profiles and mission briefings she shouldn't have known about. Adjustments no technician should have been able to justify. I follow pilot requests, she said carefully. Terrain differences if Cooper asked for a mix. Captain Cooper didn't request these changes, Stone cut her off. His tone sharpened, eyes watching hers like a predator waiting for the twitch of prey. These were your initiative. The trap was clear. Cooper had already spoken to him. Or maybe Stone had simply sensed something, circling her like a hawk circling something it couldn't yet identify. I interpreted comments as guidance, sir, she replied evenly. If I overstepped, I apologize. Stone leaned closer, his voice just above a whisper. Your file says basic training, nothing more. So tell me, Bailey, where did you learn tactical ammunition configurations? The question dangled in the air like a tripwire. Christina forced herself to meet his gaze, steady, neutral. I read manuals during downtime, seemed useful. His silence lingered long enough to make the air feel heavier. Then he tucked the tablet under his arm. We'll continue this discussion later. I want every modification explained. 6 months worth. He left without another word, but Christina knew. Stone wasn't just fishing, he was hunting. And the walls of Fort Sandstone were beginning to close in. Why was the door to the maintenance office closed, and the white noise generator already humming when Captain Cooper stepped inside? Christina Bailey sat at the desk like she belonged there, though technically the office wasn't hers. The blinds were half-drawn, shielding them from the hangar windows, and her posture was calm, almost detached. But her pulse told a different story. Cooper shut the door behind him and didn't waste time. His voice carried the kind of restrained intensity that only came from memory. I know who you are. Christina tilted her head slightly, as though studying him rather than answering. Syria 18 months ago. Firebase Echo. Her breath caught for the briefest fraction of a second, and she hated herself for it. That battlefield wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Not in records, not in memory, not anywhere except inside the scar tissue she carried. My unit was pinned down 6 hours, Cooper pressed on, packing the small office. Cut off. No air cover. We should all been dead. And then he stopped, his voice hitching like he still couldn't quite believe what he'd lived through. You showed up. You dragged 2 of my guys to the bird yourself. Took 3 bullets and didn't stop moving until the last man was clear. He pulled something from his flight suit pocket, a phone. The photo on the screen was grainy, dark, shot in chaos, but it was clear enough. A figure in combat gear, half dragging, half carrying a soldier toward a helicopter, muzzle flash lighting the night around her. And there, just visible above the waistband of her vest, the same geometric tattoo. I took this myself, Cooper said, voice low, for the report. They told me later the woman in this picture bled out. They told me she died a hero. Christina looked at the image for a long time, too long. You're supposed to be dead, Cooper whispered. The room was quiet except for the hum of the generator. Finally, Christina spoke. Maybe you're thinking of someone else. It was a pathetic attempt and they both knew it. Cooper shook his head. Don't insult me. That tattoo belongs to one unit, one that doesn't officially exist, Phantom Regiment. His eyes bored into hers. You're one of them, or you were. Christina leaned back, arms crossed, her mask slipping just enough to let steel edge into her voice. What do you want, Captain? Answers. His voice cracked on the word. Why fake your death? Why spend 18 months pushing ammo belts like a supply clerk? Why? He stopped himself, but the anger in his eyes said more than his words. Christina rose slowly, walked to the window and looked out at the flight line. The Apache sat gleaming in the desert sun, silent predators waiting for orders. She kept her back to him when she finally spoke. Because someone sold us out. The words hung heavy between them. My team, she continued, voice steady but quiet, 7 of us. 5 died that night at Firebase Echo. 1 went missing. I was left breathing when I shouldn't have been. She turned, her gaze sharp now. And someone with access to top-level briefings put us in that kill box. Someone inside our own intelligence. Cooper's jaw tightened. He didn't argue. He didn't have to. He had probably suspected as much for months. I went dark, Christina said. No one could know I survived. If the leak found out, they'd erase me before I could get close. So I became nobody. And ended up here, Cooper muttered, almost to himself. Christina gave a bitter smile. We're better to hide a ghost than in plain sight. Load ammo, keep my head down, wait. Cooper studied her, torn between admiration and frustration. 18 months of waiting. For what? For him. Christina didn't have to say the name. They both knew. Lieutenant Commander Stone. Cooper's eyes flicked to the door like Stone might already be listening. You think it's him? I think he's my best lead, Christina replied. And now, thanks to you, he's circling closer than ever. The sting in her voice wasn't fair, and she knew it. Cooper hadn't meant to blow her cover, but intent didn't matter. Recognition was recognition. And Stone was the kind of man who smelled blood from a mile away. Before Cooper could reply, the base-wide announcement crackled through the intercom. All personnel report to briefing room immediately. Mission parameters have changed. This is not a drill. The words landed like a hammer blow. Christina and Cooper locked eyes. Both knew what that meant. A mission surge, increased tempo, more chaos. And chaos was exactly the kind of cover an insider would exploit. In the briefing room, she faded into the back row as always, her camouflage not cloth but demeanor. Invisible, forgettable, she watched. Colonel Ward stepped to the podium, posture rigid, voice clipped. Credible intelligence indicates imminent terrorist activity targeting Phoenix infrastructure. Effective immediately, we move to threat condition Charlie. Phoenix 90 miles away, within Apache range. Beside him, Major Cole, sharp, efficient, respected, outlined air cover rotations and reconnaissance schedules. And then Stone stood, tablet in hand, voice smooth, calm, too calm. Intercepted communications indicate the terrorist cell had access to detailed facility blueprints. Christina felt her stomach turn. Blueprints, just like Syria, just like Echo, always the same, leaks too precise to be coincidence. Someone asked about sources. Stone smiled the way only intelligence officers smile when they don't intend to answer. Multiple channels, details remain classified. Murmurs of unease spread through the room, but protocol silenced questions. Christina studied his face, the controlled posture, the measured pauses. He was good, too good. When the briefing ended, personnel clustered into groups, whispering, speculating. Stone moved between them like a conductor directing an orchestra, gathering pieces of conversation. Christina slipped toward the exit, head down, only to find Cooper already waiting there. "Bailey," he said loudly enough for others to hear, "check the ammo feed on Apache 3, fault indicators again. A maintenance issue, a cover." She followed him out into the hangar, toward the bird parked farthest from the crowd. His voice dropped as soon as they were out of earshot. "You think this Phoenix op is real?" Christina ran her hand along the panel, performing the charade. "I think the timing is convenient. Threat spikes just as Stone starts questioning me. It smells wrong." "You think he's manufacturing it?" "I think someone is." Before she could say more, footsteps approached. Stone himself rounded the nose of the Apache. "Problems with this aircraft?" he asked, gaze sharp, though the question was directed at Cooper. "Minor glitch," Cooper replied smoothly. "Bailey's checking connections." Stone's eyes never left her. "Find anything unusual?" Christina emerged from the inspection hatch, rag in hand. "Everything looks normal, sir. Probably just a calibration issue." Stone nodded slowly, but his smile carried no warmth. "Interesting. Faults like this seem to cluster around specific aircraft, almost as though someone with advanced technical knowledge is making adjustments." The accusation was as thinly veiled as barbed wire. "I follow standard protocols, sir," Christina said evenly. "If there's a pattern, maybe it's manufacturing defects or supply chain." "That's one possibility," Stone replied. His tone turned colder. "Another is deliberate interference." The silence stretched. Cooper shifted slightly, stepping closer to her, protective without being obvious. Christina made a choice then. Playing defense wasn't working. Stone was building his case, brick by brick, preparing to crush her with it, so she went on the offensive. "Sir," she said, her voice steady, professional, almost bold, "if you have concerns about my work, I'd prefer direct feedback rather than implications. I take pride in keeping these aircraft combat-ready. If I'm failing in that, I want to know." For the first time, Stone faltered, just for a breath. She'd struck an angle he hadn't expected, assertive, not defensive. His eyes narrowed. "We'll see," he said softly. "Expect questions." He walked away. Cooper exhaled. That was either brilliant or suicidal. "Probably both," Christina murmured. Night fell like a curtain. The base lit up under harsh white floodlights, every corner cut with shadows. Christina worked alone in the weapons depot, officially cataloging inventory, unofficially tracing discrepancies. 18 months of requisitions lay in front of her, a map of anomalies only she could see. Ammunition counts that didn't add up, signatures that seemed too perfect, deliveries that matched too neatly to classified briefings. Patterns, always patterns. The heavy door hissed open and Corporal Willow Hunt entered, communications specialist, young, sharp, eyes that saw everything. "Working late again?" Hunt asked casually. "Stone wants reports by morning," Christina replied without looking up. But Hunt didn't leave. She wandered the depot, gaze sharp. Been monitoring the intel feeds for Phoenix, she said quietly. Funny thing, 3 separate channels, but all traced back to the same origin. Christina's hand stilled on her tablet. Redundant channels, manufactured credibility. Exactly the trick you'd use if you wanted lies to look like truth. Maybe the threat's just that real, Christina said lightly, testing. Maybe, Hunt murmured, but her expression was skeptical. Before Christina could probe further, the door hissed again. Stone walked in with Master Sergeant Fox, base security chief. The air thickened. Bailey, Stone said, voice clipped. Fox needs to ask you questions about equipment security. Christina straightened, calm mask back in place. Fox opened a notebook. His voice was steady, practiced. We're looking into irregular requisitions. Your name appears on forms that precede mission briefings, almost as if you knew requirements before they were official. Stone didn't even try to hide the trap this time. He wanted her cornered. I anticipate needs, Christina replied. Efficient logistics. Where'd you learn that? Fox asked, his brow furrowed. Self-study, manuals, online courses. Stone's skepticism was clear, but before he could pounce, Hunt stepped in. She's always reading manuals during breaks. She's meticulous. I've seen it. Fox nodded, nodding Hunt's words, but Stone's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected the interference. When he finally spoke, his tone was ice. We'll continue this tomorrow, every requisition, 6 months. And just like that, he left. But the damage was done. Christina saw the future unfolding, questioning, escalation, planted evidence. Stone wasn't fishing anymore. He was moving in for the kill. And she had to move first. Why would a 26-year-old communications specialist risk her career, maybe her freedom, by stepping between an intelligence officer and a woman who wasn't even supposed to exist? The weapons depot was cold, silent, built of concrete walls that muffled every sound. Christina had spent nights here alone, but tonight felt different. The air was heavy, as if it knew she was running out of moves. Corporal Willow Hunt sat across from her now, tablet in hand, voice lowered to a whisper. The Phoenix intel feeds all trace back to the same origin. Someone's manufacturing redundancy to make the threat look real. Stone keeps pointing to multiple sources, but she paused, eyes narrowing. It's the same source wearing 3 different masks. Christina studied her, weighing risks. Hunt's sharp mind and careful observations were exactly the kind of help she needed. But involving her meant exposing another person to Stone's net, and Stone never left loose ends. Maybe you're just seeing ghosts, Christina offered, carefully testing. Hunt's gaze was steady. Maybe, or maybe someone wants us too distracted to notice what's happening here. Before Christina could respond, the depot door hissed open again. Stone entered, flanked by Master Sergeant Ridge Fox. The silence turned hostile. Bailey, Stone said flatly, Fox needs to ask you some questions about supply chain irregularities. Christina straightened, every muscle trained to appear calm. Fox flipped open a notebook, his manner professional but probing. We're seeing requisitions under your name that precede official mission briefings, almost like you knew what was coming. Stone didn't blink, didn't breathe, waiting for her to slip. Christina met Fox's eyes, not Stone. I study flight schedules, terrain, maintenance cycles. Predicting needs saves lives. I plan ahead. Fox wrote it down, but Stone leaned forward, voice sharp. Or you had access to information you shouldn't, information someone leaked to you. It was a perfect trap, competence twisted into guilt, preparation reframed as betrayal. Before Christina could answer, Hunt stepped forward. Sir, Bailey's always reading manuals, always ahead of the curve. If she looks like she knows too much, it's because she studies when no one else does. Fox glanced up, considering that, but Stone's eyes narrowed with visible irritation. Hunt had just disrupted his rhythm. He closed his tablet with deliberate force. We'll continue this tomorrow, "Bailey, I want 6 months of requisitions on my desk." His tone left no room for negotiation. As he left with Fox, the weight in the room shifted. Christina turned to Hunt, voice low. "You just put yourself in his sights." Hunt shrugged, though her eyes betrayed unease. "He's already looking. Might as well give him a reason." That was the moment Christina knew she couldn't keep Hunt on the sidelines. The younger woman had already crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Hours later, as floodlights bathed Fort Sandstone in sterile white, Christina sat alone in the depot again. Patterns on her tablet confirmed what her instincts had screamed. Stone wasn't gathering evidence. He was manufacturing it. Ammunition counts that were off by just enough to look suspicious. Authorization codes that matched her name but not her keystroke patterns. Someone was building her into the perfect scapegoat. The heavy door hissed again. This time it was Stone or Fox. It was Hunt, looking pale, tense. "Communications centers lit up," she said quickly. "MPs all over it. Emergency vehicles. They're saying classified materials were found in my quarters." Christina's blood ran cold. "What?" Hunt nodded, eyes wide with disbelief. "Blueprints, intercepts, personnel files, stuff I never touched. They planted it." The realization hit like a blow. Hunt wasn't just a potential ally anymore. She was bait. Stone had thrown her into the fire to clear the path. Minutes later, Christina's encrypted phone buzzed. A message from Cooper. "Hunt arrested. Stone leading investigation. You're next." The words burned on the screen. Stone had accelerated his timeline. The net was closing and she was at the center. Outside, sirens wailed. Over the loudspeaker, Colonel Ward's voice carried across the base. "All personnel remain in place until further notice. This is not a drill." Lockdown. Christina stared at the depot walls. Concrete that had once felt protective now pressing in like a tomb. She had 90 seconds. That's what her sensors told her. 90 seconds before Stone's MPs reached the depot door, ready to escort her into a questioning session that would end with treason charges she couldn't fight. Surrender meant disappearing. Maybe prison. Maybe a bullet on the way to interrogation. But she hadn't survived Syria just to die in Arizona. Her fingers flew across the hidden console built into the depot's computer station. Systems she'd prepared months ago lit up in sequence. Blast shields, life support backups, communication relays disguised as inventory software. Steel slammed into place over the doors and windows with a deafening clang. Stone's voice came through external speakers moments later. "Bailey, open the door immediately. You're only making this worse." Christina keyed the intercom, her tone cool, unflinching. "When you explain how Hunt accessed files while she was standing in this room with me, I'll open the door." There was a pause, the kind of pause that revealed cracks in even the best facade. "You're interfering with a legitimate investigation," Stone snapped. "No," Christina countered, fingers racing across the hidden keyboard as she tapped into base security logs. "I'm protecting myself from a framed job." On the depot's screens, access records scrolled in real time. Hunt's credentials had been used during the very minutes she'd been in the depot. Planted. Sloppy, but convincing enough for anyone who wasn't looking. Another encrypted message flashed across her secure phone. "Phoenix Op is cover. 3 terabytes of classified data scheduled for transfer tonight. Stop it or lose everything." Christina froze. It wasn't just about framing her anymore. The entire Phoenix emergency was camouflage for the real operation, a massive data theft. Her sensors ticked down, 60 seconds until forced entry. She didn't have the luxury of caution anymore. Activating the depot's emergency comms, she broadcast across every channel. Her voice carried sharp and clear across the base. "Security breach in progress. Communications center server room. Classified database extraction active. Verify immediately." For the first time, she forced Stone's hand. His reply came fast, laced with panic he couldn't quite hide. Disregard that. Bailey is suffering psychological breakdown under stress. Ignore her transmission. But she saw it, the crack, the tremor in his voice. Too late, her message had already gone wide. When the blast shields finally began to lower, Christina didn't step out in fatigues. She emerged in full tactical kit, gear that had been hidden under inventory racks for months. The MPs froze at the sight, the quiet maintenance tech reborn as something else entirely. "Sergeant Fox," she called, her voice steady, commanding. "Secure the server room, right now. You'll find proof of massive data theft under emergency cover." Fox stared, caught between duty and shock. "Who exactly are you?" Christina met his eyes. "Staff Sergeant Christina Bailey, Phantom Regiment. I've been here 18 months investigating leaks that killed my team. Call General York. Authentication code Phantom 77. She'll confirm." Behind Fox, Stone's face tightened with something close to panic. And for the first time in 18 months, Christina stopped hiding. Why did the MPs hesitate when the mousy technician they'd ignored for 18 months stepped out of the depot in full tactical gear, voice steady, posture lethal? Because ghosts weren't supposed to come back. Christina Bailey stood beneath the floodlights, tactical vest snug, sidearm holstered but ready. The weight of it felt familiar, like slipping back into a skin she'd shed too long ago. Stone's voice cut across the tarmac, sharp, controlled. "She's delusional. Don't listen to her." But Christina didn't look at him. She looked at Master Sergeant Ridge Fox, the security chief, the man who now had the power to decide whether she lived or vanished into Stone's narrative. "Call General York," she said, calm but unwavering. "Use authentication code Phantom 77. She'll verify my assignment." Stone barked, "Fox, she's manipulating you. This is an elaborate cover story for espionage. She's dangerous." Christina finally turned her eyes on Stone. "You're terrified because the server room won't lie for you." Fox's jaw flexed. He was a man who had built a career reading people, weighing truth in their eyes more than in their words. What he saw in Christina wasn't hysteria. It was resolve. Before he could respond, his radio crackled. "Security Chief, this is Cooper." The transmission came in ragged, breathless. "I'm in the comms center with data extraction in progress. The entire classified database is being. Active session shows under Lieutenant Commander Stone's credentials." The air went electric. Stone's face drained of color. "Impossible," he snapped too quickly. "My credentials were compromised. She's behind this, she." "Funny," Christina cut in. "You've been standing right here for 40 minutes and the logs show continuous access under your name. Either you've mastered bilocation, or you automated the theft while playing investigator." Fox's eyes narrowed. He'd seen lies unravel before. This one was starting to stink. Stone's hand twitched toward his holster. The MPs shifted uneasily, caught between conflicting commands. Christina moved before thought could catch her. A fluid step, a twist, and Stone's pistol clattered across the pavement. She locked his arm in a joint hold that bent him to one knee, pain etched across his face. "Stand down," Fox barked at the MPs. "Weapons down, nobody fires." The younger soldiers froze, confusion written all over their faces. The technician they dismissed had just disarmed an officer like he was a rookie. Christina's voice was low, cold, meant only for Stone. "Tell me about Firebase Echo." His eyes flickered recognition, then fear. "5 KIA, 2 wounded, 1 missing, my team, betrayed by someone with access to mission briefs." She tightened her hold just enough to make his breath hitch. "That was you." "I never had access." "Don't lie." Her voice was sharp as a blade. "Clearance granted in 2022. Multi-theater operations. You had everything you needed." Fox stepped closer, his face grim. "Lieutenant Commander Stone, You're under arrest for treason, espionage, and conspiracy to aid enemy forces." But Stone wasn't done. His body sagged, his voice softened, shifting into something dangerously persuasive. "You don't understand. I wasn't betraying us, I was saving us. Washington moves too slow. People die while they push paper. I got information into hands that could act." It was the twisted rationalization Christina had heard before. The patriot's mask pulled over the traitor's face. "You sold American lives," she said flatly. "They would died anyway," Stone insisted, desperation creeping in. "At least this way intelligence got used." Fox's radio cut through the moment. "Security chief, we've detained the individual in the server room," Cooper reported. His voice sounded strained. "You're not going to believe this, it's Boyd." Christina's chest tightened. Boyd, the 19-year-old kid with shoelaces always undone, who looked at her like she held all the answers. Fox's voice was sharp. "Private First Class Boyd doesn't have clearance." "He does," Christina said grimly. "If someone with admin access elevated him temporarily. Stone used him, told him it was routine backup." Stone's silence was answer enough. His shoulders sagged. Cooper's voice returned. "Kid's terrified, says Stone gave him direct orders." Fox's anger radiated now, professional fury laced with betrayal. "You used a child to cover your tracks." Stone's composure cracked. He looked smaller, older, the weight of exposure crushing him, but still he clung to his twisted logic. "You think anyone in DC cares about some 19-year-old? Or about Echo? They bury names on memorial walls and move on. I made sure information actually meant something." Christina's grip tightened. Memories of her team's last breaths flickered in her mind. The silence after gunfire, the smell of blood in desert dust. "You made sure 5 coffins came home draped in flags," she said. Her voice was low, lethal. "And you told yourself it was noble." Fox gestured and MPs moved in. "Restrain him." Christina released her hold, stepping back as Stone was cuffed, his fury now impotent. But the night wasn't over. Cooper emerged minutes later from the comms center, one hand steady on Boyd's shoulder. The kid looked hollowed out, cheeks pale, eyes wide with shame. "Sergeant Bailey," Boyd stammered, unable to meet her eyes. "I didn't know. He said it was emergency backup. I swear I didn't know." Christina knelt, meeting him at eye level. Her voice softened for the first time that night. "You followed orders, orders you believed were legitimate. That's not betrayal, that's trust. The wrong man abused it." Tears brimmed in Boyd's eyes. "I should questioned it." Cooper's hand squeezed his shoulder. "Stone spent 2 years learning how to manipulate people. He chose you because you're good, because you're loyal." Fox looked at Christina. "What now?" She glanced toward the comms center, where drives were still being pulled from servers. The data extraction had stopped, but the damage would take months to measure. "Now," she said quietly, "we count the cost." Dawn crept over Fort Sandstone like a slow confession. Floodlights dimmed, and the desert turned gold under the rising sun. The base looked the same, but nothing was the same. Christina sat in Colonel Ward's office, no longer a shadow but fully visible at last. Uniform corrected, rank displayed Staff Sergeant, Special Operations. Ward studied her across his desk, expression heavy. 18 months, a soldier of your caliber hidden under my nose." His voice wasn't anger so much as wounded pride. "I should have known." "You couldn't," Christina replied evenly. "That was the point." Ward exhaled. "And Stone?" She didn't look away. "Stone killed my team before a bullet ever reached us. He'll answer for that." Ward nodded. "And you?" For the first time in 18 months, Christina let the weight of the question rest on her shoulders. Who was she now? Not the invisible technician, not just the operator, something in between, fractured and unfinished. But she answered anyway. "I'm still alive, that's enough." "Why did Corporal Willow Hunt vanish?" just hours after Stone was dragged away in handcuffs. At first, no one noticed. Hunt was low in the chain, a calm specialist whose absence could be explained by late-night debriefs or exhaustion after lockdown. But by mid-morning, when she failed to report for duty, whispers spread across Fort Sandstone like cracks in glass. Christina Bailey stood outside the comms center, watching MPs comb through Hunt's quarters. She should have felt relief after exposing Stone. Instead, unease gnawed at her chest. "Room's clean," Fox muttered, stepping out. His face was grim, jaw tight. No signs of struggle, no packed bags either. She didn't walk out of here on her own. Christina's hands tightened into fists. Hunt had been sharp, curious, too curious. She spotted the fabricated intel feeds before anyone else, and Stone had noticed. "Stone's already in custody," Cooper said from behind her, his voice quiet but steady. "He can't reach her." Christina turned, eyes cold. Networks don't collapse because one man in cuffs. If Hunt's gone, someone else took her. The silence between them said everything. Boyd sat on a bench nearby, head bowed, hands trembling. His face was a battlefield of guilt and confusion. He hadn't spoken much since the night before, except to repeat one line: "I should known." Christina walked over, crouched in front of him. "Look at me, Boyd." His eyes lifted, bloodshot and broken. "You didn't fail," she said firmly. "Stone exploited your trust. That's not weakness, that's what soldiers are taught, to trust the chain. The failure wasn't yours, it was his." Boyd shook his head violently. "He used me. I gave him what he wanted. If Hunt, gone because of me." "Stop," Christina cut in, sharper now. "Guilt makes you slow. Slow gets people killed. If you want to honor Hunt, stay sharp. Don't drown in what-ifs." The words weren't just for him. They were for herself. Because every night since Echo, she'd drowned in what-ifs. What if she'd seen the ambush sooner? What if she'd shouted louder, fought harder, chosen differently? Boyd swallowed hard. "Then what do I do?" Christina leaned closer. "You watch, you listen, and when the time comes, you stand with me." For the first time, a flicker of resolve returned to his eyes. By noon, Colonel Ward had convened a closed-door council. Ward himself, Fox, Cooper, two senior intelligence officers flown in overnight, and Christina. Hunt's disappearance had elevated everything to red alert. The air inside the room was thick with unease. Files spread across the table, requisitions, server logs, Stone's intercepted communications, but none of it explained Hunt. Fox laid out the facts. Stone had extensive access, but he didn't work alone. Network traffic analysis shows data moving through multiple blind relays. He was part of something larger. Christina spoke quietly but firmly, which means Hunt didn't just vanish. She was taken or silenced. The intel officers shifted uncomfortably. One finally spoke. "Stone was a conduit. There's chatter about a secondary handler, someone higher, possibly still inside the system." Ward's fist slammed the table. "My base is not a playground for traitors." But Christina shook her head. "This isn't about your base, sir. This is bigger. Echo wasn't an accident. Hunt didn't disappear because of one man. Stone's just the tip." The room fell silent. No one wanted to admit it, but the truth was undeniable. Ward finally exhaled. "Then we find the rest of them." After the meeting, Cooper caught up with her outside, his steps matching hers across the scorching tarmac. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" he asked quietly. Christina didn't answer right away. The desert stretched around them, endless, unforgiving. Finally, she said, "Echo wasn't a battlefield. It was a message. And until I know who signed it, I don't get to stop breathing." Cooper studied her, then gave a small nod. "Then I guess I'm with you." It was the kind of loyalty spoken quietly, without ceremony, the kind that mattered. But loyalty wouldn't bring Hunt back. That night, Christina sat in the depot again, the same concrete box that had once been her cover. She stared at the requisition patterns, but her mind kept drifting to Hunt's face. The way she'd spoken up against Stone. The way she'd looked at Christina, not with suspicion, but with trust. Trust, that fragile thread that could bind or choke. Her encrypted phone buzzed. A message. No sender ID, just words. If you want to see her alive, stop digging. Christina's throat tightened. Hunt was alive for now. But Stone was already in custody, which meant someone else had just revealed themselves. Her phone buzzed again. A second message. Ghosts don't belong in daylight. Go back to the shadows, or we bury her where no one finds her. Christina closed her eyes. The war she'd tried to hide from had just come roaring back, and this time it had Hunt in its jaws. She typed a reply with steady hands. You want me, not her. Name the place. The screen blinked, then soon. The phone went dark. She sat in silence for a long time. Then, almost against her will, her mind drifted back to Echo, to the faces of the 5 who'd died, to the one who'd vanished. Vanished. Her eyes opened sharply. One missing, one unaccounted for. 18 months she had believed her teammate was lost, dead or captured. But what if the missing one wasn't a victim at all? Her stomach dropped. What if Hunt's abductor wasn't just a nameless operative in Stone's network, but someone she had once called brother-in-arms? Why did the encrypted message feel like a voice she already knew? Christina stared at the dead phone screen long after the words had faded. Ghosts don't belong in daylight. It wasn't just a threat, it was language lifted straight from her past. At Firebase Echo, the Phantom Regiment had spoken in fragments, mottos disguised as riddles. One of them, whispered in the barracks before night raids, had always been the same. Ghosts work best in shadows. Her pulse quickened. Whoever had taken Hunt wasn't just part of Stone's network. They knew her team. But there was only one way they could know that motto. The missing one. Staff Sergeant Caleb Vance. Her sniper. Her shadow. The one who had disappeared in the smoke and chaos of Echo's collapse. For 18 months she had mourned him. For 18 months she had pictured his body unburied in some desert ravine. And now she had to face the possibility that he hadn't died at all. He had defected. The thought lodged in her throat like shrapnel. "Talk to me," Cooper said quietly, stepping into the depot. He had seen her face go pale, seen the way she clutched the phone like a live grenade. She told him, slowly, carefully, the pieces falling into place as she spoke. The missing soldier, the shared mottos, the timing of the message. "You're saying Hunt was taken by one of your own," Cooper said finally. His voice wasn't skeptical, it was careful. "I'm saying someone I trusted more than anyone may have been the leak from the beginning." The silence stretched. Finally Cooper asked, "Then what do we do?" Christina looked at the concrete floor, then lifted her eyes. "We find her before he buries her." By dawn, Christina had assembled what she needed. A stripped-down tactical kit, a suppressed carbine, and a burner comms unit linked only to Cooper. Ward hadn't sanctioned an op. The official line was still investigate and contain. But Christina couldn't sit behind briefing tables while Hunt's life ticked away in someone else's hands. She wasn't going official, she was going ghost again. Boyd intercepted her at the motor pool, helmet under one arm, desperation in his eyes. "You're leaving." "Not your fight," she said, brushing past him. But his voice cracked raw. "She covered for me. Hunt. She's gone because she defended me. If you think I'm letting you go after her alone, you're wrong." Christina froze. The kid's eyes weren't just desperate, they were burning. Not with recklessness, but with the same stubborn loyalty she'd once seen in Echo's youngest. Her heart clenched. "You slow me down, you die," she said finally. Boyd nodded without hesitation. "Then I'll run faster." The desert stretched endless beyond the wire, sand and scrub glowing under the rising sun. Christina drove, Boyd in the passenger seat, Cooper's voice in their ears through secure comms. "We've been running pings since the message," Cooper said. "Signal bounced through 7 relays, but Hunt's comms beacon registered once. North Sector, abandoned mine network." Christina knew the place. Old shafts from the 60s, half collapsed, used sometimes for training. A perfect hole to bury secrets. As the Humvee bounced across the rough terrain, Boyd broke the silence. "You knew him, didn't you? The missing one, the one you think has her." Christina kept her eyes on the horizon. "I didn't just know him. I trusted him with my life, more times than I can count." "And now?" Boyd asked carefully. "And now," she said, her voice flat, "I'll have to decide if I put him in cuffs or in the ground." The rest of the ride was silent. They reached the mine entrance by noon. Rusted fencing, warning signs half buried in sand, silence thick as dust. Christina motioned Boyd down. They advanced on foot, weapons ready, senses stretched taut. Inside, the tunnels were cool, damp, shadows clinging to jagged walls. The deeper they went, the stronger the echo of old memories pressed against Christina's chest. The smell of gun oil, the crunch of boots on stone, the silence before an ambush. Boyd touched her arm, pointing, a faint glow ahead. They crept closer. The glow resolved into a lantern set beside a figure bound to a chair. Hunt. Her head lolled forward, wrists tied, face pale but alive. Relief surged through Christina, but she didn't move. The scene was too neat, too staged. A voice came from the dark, calm, familiar. "You always did walk into traps with your eyes open." Christina froze. From the shadows, Caleb Vance stepped forward. Beard thicker, eyes sharper but unmistakable, her sniper. Her brother in arms, the ghost who hadn't died. Her breath caught. "Caleb." Boyd's weapon twitched upward, but Christina held out a hand, stopping him. Vance's gaze flicked between them, then settled on her. 18 months, Chris. 18 months watching from the other side, wondering if you'd piece it together. Her voice cracked. "Why?" "Because Echo was never our fight," he said, his tone almost gentle. "We were pawns, collateral. I saw it in their eyes, in the orders that didn't make sense, so I chose not to be a pawn anymore." "You chose to be a traitor," Christina spat. "I chose survival." His expression hardened. "And don't pretend you don't understand. You've been hiding in shadows, same as me. Only difference is I learned the truth faster." Christina's chest tightened. He believed it. He actually believed betrayal was survival. "You leaked intel," she whispered. "You killed them." "I freed myself," Vance said coldly. "And if you had any sense, you'd do the same." Behind him, Hunt stirred, eyes fluttering open. Her muffled gasp filled the silence. Vance's weapon dangled at his side, not aimed but not lowered either. His confidence was absolute. "You have 2 choices," he said softly. "Walk away with the kid, forget you saw her, and I let you both live, or fight me and she dies first." Christina's pulse hammered in her ears. Boyd whispered, "What do we do?" Her eyes never left Vance. "We make our own third choice." And with that, the cave filled with the echo of decisions that could never be undone. How do you aim a rifle at someone who once saved your life? The mind's silence swallowed everything: Boyd's shallow breathing, Hunt's faint whimpers, Christina's pounding heart. Vance stood a dozen feet away, lantern light carving harsh angles across his face. He looked both older and sharper, as though betrayal itself had sculpted him. Christina's voice was steady. "Let her go." Vance tilted his head, almost amused. "Always the protector, but tell me, Chris, who protected Echo, who protected us?" The words cut deeper than any blade, because she remembered the night of the ambush, the chaos, the unanswered calls for support that never came. "You think betrayal is justice?" she asked. "I think betrayal is honesty," Vance shot back. "They betrayed us first, orders that sent us blind into hostile territory, a phantom op that wasn't supposed to exist, I watched our brothers die because command needed deniability. Boyd's weapon trembled, his young voice cracking. That doesn't mean you get to sell us out. Vance's eyes flicked toward him, cold and dismissive. Kid, you've never seen the inside of a black op gone wrong. You still believe the flag gives you meaning. One day you'll learn. Christina stepped forward, slow, controlled. I learned a long time ago. The difference is I didn't choose to become the thing I hated. Vance's jaw clenched. You're lying to yourself. You've been hiding here, pushing rounds, pretending you're no one. That's not loyalty, that's shame. The words pierced her. Shame. Yes, she had buried herself in menial work. Hopping invisibility would erase the guilt of survival, but hearing it from his mouth twisted it into poison. Untie her, Christina said again, her voice low, dangerous. Vance smiled without warmth. Or what, you'll shoot me. He spread his arms slightly as if daring her. Do it, Chris. Put a bullet in the man who once dragged you out of sniper fire in Kandahar. Pull the trigger on your own shadow. Her fingers tightened on her weapon. The memory surfaced unbidden. Smoke, chaos, Vance's hands pulling her bleeding body to cover. His voice rasping, stay with me, Chris. Her vision blurred for a moment, then cleared. You're not him anymore, she whispered. Vance's eyes hardened. Maybe I'm finally who I always should been. The air snapped tight. Boyd shifted, whispering, we can't outdraw him. Shut up, Vance barked, gun snapping toward Boyd. Christina's body reacted before thought. She moved between them, weapon raised. Point that at me, not him. Vance's smile returned, twisted. There she is, the fighter I remember. Behind him, Hunt stirred again, her voice raw. Chris, don't. Christina kept her eyes locked on Vance. You talk about command's betrayal like it absolves you, but you weren't just surviving Caleb. You were feeding them, feeding the ones who killed us. His lips thinned. And what did you do? You survived, you disappeared. You let the names fade from the reports. You buried yourself in grease and wrenches. At least I acted. The words struck like blows, because there was truth buried in them. She had hidden, she had let herself fade. But survival wasn't the same as treason. You acted, she said, her voice trembling but rising. You acted for yourself. You sold Hunt to prove a point. You turned Boyd into a pawn. You turned Echo into leverage. For the first time, Vance's composure cracked. His eyes flashed. I turned Echo into a warning, a reminder that soldiers are expendable unless we remind them we're not. By killing us, she snapped. The mine echoed with the sound of her voice. And then silence. For a long moment, they stood in stalemate, ghosts of the same regiment staring each other down, one consumed by bitterness, the other by guilt. Christina spoke softer now, almost pleading. It doesn't have to end like this. You can still stop. You can still choose. But Vance's shoulders sagged, and in his eyes she saw it. He'd already chosen, long ago. His weapon lifted, and in that instant Boyd moved. The kid lunged sideways, kicking over the lantern. Darkness swallowed the cavern, broken only by the thin beam of Christina's rifle light. A shot cracked, the sound thunderous in the tunnel. Sparks flared from rock. Down, Christina shouted, diving, dragging Boyd with her. Chaos erupted, muzzle flashes strobing, stone chips biting skin, Hunt crying out as her chair toppled. Christina rolled, weapon braced, light catching Vance's silhouette. For a heartbeat it was just him and her, two ghosts, one target. Her finger tightened. But memory hit again. Kandahar, his hand dragging her to safety, his voice keeping her alive. Her shot went wide. Vance vanished deeper into the tunnels. Boyd, cover her, she barked, sprinting forward. The kid scrambled to position, firing short bursts, barely keeping the dark at bay. Christina reached Hunt, cutting ropes with swift precision. Can you move? Hunt's legs wobbled, but her voice was fierce. I'm not slowing you down. Together they half carried, half-dragged her toward the exit as gunfire echoed deeper inside. Vance's voice followed them, low, taunting, bouncing off stone. "You can't kill me, Chris. You know why? Because I'm the part of you you're too afraid to admit exists." Her throat tightened, because maybe he was right. But she didn't look back. She pushed forward, every muscle burning with one truth. Hunt was alive, Boyd was alive, and she wasn't losing anyone else tonight. At the tunnel mouth, daylight flooded in like salvation. Cooper's team appeared, weapons raised, covering their escape. "Contact inside," Christina shouted. "Vance is armed, mobile, dangerous." Fox's voice boomed over the comms. "Lock perimeter. Nothing leaves that mine." As Hunt was pulled into med-arms, Christina turned back once, staring into the darkness she'd left behind. Somewhere in those tunnels, her old shadow was still alive. And she knew this wasn't over. How do you fight a ghost when part of you still wants to believe he can be saved? The desert sun was already high when Christina stood at the mine's entrance, dust in her hair, rifle heavy in her arms. Hunt was alive, shaken but breathing. Boyd, scraped and pale, hadn't let go of his weapon even after being ordered to stand down. Cooper's team held the perimeter tight. But the mine still breathed. Every gust of wind seemed to whisper Vance's name. Fox approached, scanning the shafts. "He's dug in. Labyrinth down there, could take days to flush him out." Christina shook her head. "He won't run." Fox raised a brow. "How do you know?" Her eyes stayed on the black mouth of the mine. "Because he wants me to follow." The words tasted like rust, and she knew they were true. Vance hadn't taken Hunt to vanish, he'd taken her to draw Christina into the dark. Ward's voice crackled over comms. "Fox, hold perimeter. Do not send anyone into those tunnels until we've mapped every shaft." But Christina's body was already moving. She adjusted her gear, tightened her sling. Fox caught her arm. "You step in there, you step in alone." "I've been alone since Echo," she said softly and pulled free. The mind swallowed her. Darkness pressed close, every sound. The air was cool, damp, laced with the smell of old stone and gun oil. Her boots found the trail easily. Vance hadn't hidden it, scraped rock, dropped casings, a breadcrumb path deliberate. He was waiting. The tunnels narrowed, then widened into a cavern where shafts of sunlight speared through cracks above. Dust motes hung suspended, glowing like ghosts. And there he was. Caleb Vance stood in the center, weapon slung, arms loose at his sides. No ambush, no barricade, just him. Christina raised her rifle, but he didn't flinch. "Still hesitate," he said quietly, "even after everything." Her voice echoed in the stone. "You murdered our family." "I buried them," he corrected sharply. "Command murdered them. I just stopped pretending the flag makes us safe." Her finger hovered on the trigger. "Then why Hunt? Why the kid?" Vance's eyes flickered, softer for a moment. "Because you needed reminding. You've been playing dead, hiding. I had to drag you back into the war where you belong." "That wasn't your choice," she snapped. His smile was sad, almost broken. "Everything's my choice now." The silence stretched, heavy, suffocating. Two ghosts facing each other in the dim light, bound by memories no one else could touch. "Come with me," Vance said finally. His voice dropped, pleading. "You know what we saw at Echo. You know the truth. You think they won't burn you next. You think they won't bury your name too. Walk out of here with me. We disappear. We fight on our terms." For one breath she almost saw it, the desert stretching ahead, two shadows walking into exile. No more orders, no more betrayal. But then she saw Boyd's wide eyes, Hunt's trembling hands, the flag-draped coffins of Echo. Her answer was steady, "No." Vance's jaw tightened. "Then you've chosen death." He moved fast, weapon snapping up. The cavern erupted with gunfire. Stone splintered, dust choking the air. Christina dropped low, rolling behind a jagged outcrop. Her rifle barked, sparks showering off rock where Vance had been a breath before. Still can't kill me, his voice echoed, mocking. Because I'm you, the part of you that stopped believing. Her chest heaved. She fired again, pinning him behind a boulder. No, she called out, voice ragged. You're the part of me that gave up. Silence, then the scrape of boots. He was flanking. She moved, instinct guiding her. Every step, every breath was memory. The training runs in rain, the whispered jokes on night watch, the way his rifle had once covered her every advance. Now they were predator and prey, and neither wanted to admit which was which. She swung wide, catching his shadow, fired, a cry sharp cut through the cavern. When she reached him, Vance was on one knee, blood seeping through his side. His weapon lay just out of reach. He looked up at her, eyes not angry but weary. So this is it, ghost kills ghost. Her rifle trembled. I didn't want this, she whispered. Neither did I, he said, his breath shallow. But there's no place for us anymore, not in their world. His words lingered in the dust. And maybe he was right. Maybe the world had no place for soldiers like them, shadows carrying scars no one else could see. But Hunt was alive, Boyd was alive, and she had a choice. Christina lowered her weapon slowly. You can still face this. Prison, trial, but you face it alive. Vance gave a broken laugh. Alive, behind bars I'd already be dead, you know it. His hand twitched toward the fallen weapon. Christina's heart clenched. Don't, she whispered. But his eyes met hers and she saw it, the decision already made. He reached. Her shot was instinct, clean, final. The cavern rang with silence. Christina stood there, chest heaving, staring at the body of the man who had once been her shadow. A brother, a traitor, a ghost. She closed her eyes, forcing breath back into her lungs. Outside, the sun was blinding when she finally stepped out of the mine. Fox's men turned, weapons lowered, faces searching. Status, Fox demanded. Her voice was steady, though her heart was breaking. It's over. Hunt was waiting, bruised but standing. Boyd, too, his face pale but resolute. Cooper nodded once, the kind of nod that said, I know what it cost you. Christina met their eyes, then looked past them, out across the endless desert. Some battles ended in explosions, others ended in silence, and some ended in choices that carved you hollow. That night she sat alone in the depot, writing names in a battered notebook. Echo's names, Vance, too. Not to absolve him, not to forget, but because ghosts, even broken ones, deserve to be remembered. Her final words, barely above a whisper, carried into the quiet. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And for the first time in 18 months, she felt the weight of survival shift, not lighter but bearable.